Hey, okay, so I'm gonna keep talking about finding the language needed to describe the scenarios that we find ourselves in today. And I'm just gonna talk off the top of my head and see what comes up, but hopefully you guys enjoy. Okay, so, okay. Um, so I was an Army Ranger, and I've been deployed 4 times. I've been to Iraq once and Afghanistan 3 times, and I've built this general picture of how to understand my experiences, and it's taken a lot of time of really like self-examination, going through, looking at my life, looking at the energetic moments that like have made me who I am and what's important to me. And in this, I've seen like a real kind of steering and veering from one way to another and trying to like I mean it's I've not been on the path that I expected for myself, to say the least. And I thought that joining the military, like I really took some things for granted about what my understanding was of our nation, and what my ability to understand, maybe say like geopolitical scope of things, or really just a conscious humanity scope of things in a way that connects me to the consciousness of humanity as a whole, connects me to the earth. I sold myself like short on that, and I didn't realize that it is actually an approachable thing, and it's very simple actually. It's like to bring it up to that level, it actually alleviates all this other energy that's wasted and dispensed in erroneous things throughout the course of a lifetime that could you could spend your whole life wasting your energy to try to avoid hitting it at the level that approaches it when it comes to connecting that, because like connecting that perception. But so I realized that there's forces in play that sold me short from going to that full scale recognition that is required to build a holistic picture of my experiences. There were forces that sold me short on that, and really ultimately are used to manipulate the population. I realized that pretty much everything in creation comes down to symbolism and can be directed through symbolism. So if a conscious individual forgets and gets lost in the symbolism, it can become abstracted to the point where it doesn't match up with their truth, and they find themselves disempowering themselves to an idea of, say, what your country is, what your freedoms mean, are supposed to mean, what they've been taught to you to mean, who the enemy is, things like this. These are ideas and abstractions often used in symbolism through the sources of, say, media and culture and education. So, but through like gaining these real life experiences and going over to the other side of the world for myself and seeing firsthand with my own eyes, I realized how disconnected I actually became. I realized that I was entirely disassociated with the real scenario that was going on over there, of like, and it's like I knew that it was too difficult for me to put together all at once while it was happening. I was too shut off from the context of the scenarios that I was in the environment that I was a part of. There's a kind of a clever way of compartmentalizing the information in a way that is, when it's trickled down, it's fed to you just the right way, that you do what you're there to do, which is you're programmed to complete the mission, follow the objective, and not ask questions about the bigger scope of it. So it didn't feel like I had the full grasp of it until I had took the time to step away from it and get out of the military for a number of reasons. one of the main ones being is that I realized that most of the best people did leave, and that was a big indicator actually. But so stepping out of the situation gave me the ability to view it in a much more objective and clear-minded way. In which case I can see that that the narratives that we've been operating under fell apart at the seams. They're an eroding pile of lies. It's a false foundation that is eventually we're going to have to acknowledge, because just logic says so. Rationality says so, that if the official report left out building number 7 altogether, which dropped in 6.5 seconds, I think free fall speed straight down in on itself, but it leaves it out altogether, like, why? That's never happened before in history, that something like that is just fell in on itself. Of course it was a controlled demolition. Of course we have to examine it. And they say never forget. Well, I feel like that's just like, either it's just the epitome of irony, or in that it's also like a wake-up call that we have to examine this and fix it. It's maybe got a time limit on it as far as how long we can build on that false foundation before it erodes underneath us and our perceptions have to realign with actual reality. So I realized that you just have to build this understanding of it, and that everything is connected. And in that, it's like we're all one organism. So the best way to view the organism is holistically. If you want to understand any organism, you have to understand it in its wholeness. So if, say, my own body, for instance, you wouldn't understand me if you just examined the upper half, or if you just examined the lower half, or the left or the right. You need to basically put a circle around me entirely, kind of like the millennial man. You could maybe start at the belly button. And so, to put a circle around something is to find its center and to understand it in its wholeness. But I am not apart from the world that I'm within. And when I examine myself individually, I can see that I'm not just my body, and I'm not just my mind. But I'm a spirit too. There's this soul within me. And that spirit and soul is connected with the world around me. And so I have to, instead of taking it at just a mind, body, soul level that separates me from this, I have to take it all the way holistically to a mind, body, soul community level and connect the circle. So we're all one organism. And this evil that's going on the other side of the world that is being done in our name is basically being able to carry out through unconscious actions and what I would say willful ignorance of individuals willfully holding on to their ignorant ideas because they refuse to examine themselves. And I'm guilty of that just as much as anybody else. And the only reason why I know this is because I can hold it in relation to myself. The only reason I know any of these things is because I've examined myself. So I don't want to point the blame on anybody else, because like I said, we're all together in this. So I've learned a useful tool in holistic thinking, and I wanted to share it with you guys really quick. There's only one way to know your soul, and that is to know your household. But the only way to know your household is to know your place in the country. But the only way to know your place in your country is to know your place on the planet. But the only way to know that is to know your place in the cosmos. And the only way to know that is to know your soul. So you have to come full circle in that recognition of yourself. And anything short will just be used to manipulate and direct you, because you're disempowering yourself to something lesser than what you truly are. So that's just the point that I want to make in this time, and I want to come back and do some more of these, but I don't want to make them too long, so thanks.